Before I start, just want to quickly thank lots of friends, had a lot of help with this talk. So this is a reason that reality might be all right and games are a little broken. My friend John's been playing a free-to-play game lately, Tinder. It's the winter, it's freezing in Boston, and beards are in, but all of his Tinder profile pictures are clean-shaven. He wondered aloud to me, was he misrepresenting himself? Should he shave his beard to better match his profile? I don't know, it's tough to say, let's model it. Well, in the most generic case, game theory would recommend shaving, but it's cold and we know a handful of things from the messages that they've exchanged, as well as the photos she chose, so I begin to construct a story about who she is, what she might want. She put up a picture of her hiking, maybe 1 point for beards? This process is enabled by an ability most everyone shares, a theory of the mind. It allows us to read the mental and emotional states of others and see how they differ from ours. It's also the root of cognitive empathy, empathy that results from consciously taking on someone else's perspective. We understand how they feel, what they might be thinking. A few days later, John developed a crush in a different game. She was revolutionary, kind of punk rock. He was smitten, but she wasn't interested. A Google search later, he had his answer. No theory of mind necessary. She's into women. Nothing could change that. No problem, time to become a woman. He re-rolled and won her affections. In your average world on the brink, and you're the only one who can save it kind of game, there's no need for a theory of mind. The player's omnipotent, seemingly justified in their narcissism as the NPCs spend their days just thinking about the player and their works. The player, powered in excess, expects to be able to attain whatever they want. These are entitlement simulators. And while that aspect of games, player agency, is among the medium's most lauded qualities, I find it deeply broken when depicting interpersonal interactions, romantic or otherwise, because we're never entitled to someone else's affection, friendship, or love. I've been watching this show, The World God Only Knows, about a hardcore dating sim gamer who's been chosen by a demigod to fight/date demons in the real world. In this episode, he exhausts the dialogue tree in a notoriously buggy game, desperate to woo a woman who has remained autonomous thanks to those very bugs. His efforts fail to increasing frustration. Isn't he entitled to date the woman down one of these branches? There's something romantic about this Sisyphean quest in that every breath you take stalkery kind of way. An oblivious, selfish romance blind to the desires of the object of affection. He's drunk with agency, just restarting and restarting the world until he gets what he wants. He never considers the interiority of the object of his affection, in part because they don't have any. Not unlike my friend and his Google-aided conquest of Sarah. He's entitled to her as long as he's willing to restart. Now, I don't mean to single out Dragon Age Inquisition as a negative example, as it's pretty much the high watermark in terms of fleshed out NPCs, diverse representation, etc. But we can make stride after stride in representation. That's still only part of the battle. If we fail to foster empathy for these characters, are those strides nearly as meaningful? We can say this is a matter of player ethics, and the onus is on players to act ethically and avoid Googling. But if we make disregarding other people's interiority the easiest option, we risk encouraging a disregard for others at best. More and more people are brought up playing games. Our games impact their values, and we can do better. We can give NPCs agendas of their own. You didn't express interest in Sarah early on? Bad move. By the time you get around to flirting, she rebuffs your advances, says she's seeing someone, and heads off on a date with Josephine. She wasn't admiring you in secret, pining away, just waiting for you to finally notice her. What if romantic encounters have their own sort of permadeath, wherein players can't just brute force their way into a relationship with an NPC by retrying and retrying? Make a bad first impression, say the wrong thing, come on too strong? You may never be able to recover, no matter how many boomboxes playing Peter Gabriel you can muster. Or why not render walkthroughs impossible because the fundamental systems underpinning NPCs' decision-making are so wildly inconsistent game to game that they're so obscure as to be undiscoverable, as to be unknowable, like the contents of another person's mind. That's where things get interesting. That's where we'll start to wonder, what could they be thinking? By making NPCs act unreliably, we can imbue them with the illusion of individuality, even if we're decades away from exploring worlds filled with Turing test-passing AI. It'd be a start if Sarah had a preference regarding beards, and even better if that changed game to game, rather than her simply finding all female identifying inquisitors irresistible. This approach shares so much with the trends towards procedural level generation, permadeath, and other roguelike qualities. These games are tough and don't offer easy answers. Relationships are unpredictable and always changing. Perfect fit. Procedures and algorithms can generate surprises for us, much like our friends. We sequence those surprises into our own stories. We revel in creating meaning from the seemingly random actions taken by villagers in Animal Crossing or the dwarves of Dwarf's Fortress. We create stories to explain things that we don't understand. I made this game. What about my story, you say? It's important to realize that this is a sacrifice you're making, and that a fixed narrative has the potential to reduce the connection players have with your world and characters. Your desire for authorship can create potentially toxic empowerment for the player, as they can use linearity to coerce and force outcomes. Meaning in any art form is created as a result of various interactions between the artist, the work, the audience, and their environment. Adding chance outcomes to your story doesn't rob you of authorship, rather it trusts that the player can and will fill in those gaps, making the interaction meaningful in context. Gamification co-opted formal aspects of games for other purposes. Here, we conceive of a response, employing non-deterministic systems when our simulation space is incompatible with explicit rule sets. This is the right kind of broken, unpredictable and unreliable, just like our everyday. Not all encounters are meant to be won.